Hello, welcome back to episode 8 of the Code AI Central podcast. You will see once again that we are joined by someone, only this time, this is a permanent member of our podcasting team. So please welcome our Chief Marketing Officer, Conor Douglas. Now, Conor is the founder of Astoria Advertising Co, where he has driven more than 8 figures in revenue for his clients. So by the end of this episode today, you are going to learn from him a go-to-market strategy, how to find your customers, and your product market fit. The idea is Conor is going to join us every Thursday. So we're actually going to do 2 episodes a week from now on. Tuesdays will be just Charlie and I, and we'll go over everything we've been going over. So interviews with people, different AI tools that you can learn about and develop. I'll probably do some more AI work. So Tuesdays will remain the same. And then Thursdays, we're going to bring on Conor and his marketing genius so that once you've built your app and your product, we can then show you and teach you exactly how to get it to market so that you're actually able to make money from what you've done. So again, welcome, Conor. Welcome to the team.
Appreciate that. Thank you so much for the kind introduction. Looking forward to being part of this weekly moving forward. So really, really appreciate all that.
I never got an intro like that, like ever, even from our other podcasts. So
yeah, but that's because you didn't deserve one. And also, it's really nice that now, like permanently, I have somebody else. You know, it's nice.
Yeah.
I like it.
Anyway,
to pick on Charlie with, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Piss off, guys. By the way, the 100 million that's bananas. Like we were kind of talking about that before we hit record. I was like, really? Like, fucking right, sir.
Yeah, a lot of hard work and dedication to get to that 100 million plus figure for clients. But hey, that's some big names too under my belt.
Yeah.
Well.
So for context, then, with your agency, like, what are some like notable names?
Yeah, I mean, we were just talking about this. Jose Cuervo is a really, really big one. Capsule Pharmacy, I'm not sure if you guys have heard of them or not. They're another big one. They're all online pharmacies, so they're really big into the AI stuff right now as well. So those are probably the big two that most people have heard of. And then just really big into the e-commerce space as well, with some smaller names in the beauty industry, and then telehealth as well. But I'd say the bigger two are Jose Cuervo and Capsule would be the larger ones.
Now, if those industries are different, is the overarching strategy the same as far as like applying that here in the AI app space?
Not necessarily, right? Because depending on the industry, there's going to be a different framework for everybody, right? Especially, I just mentioned it. E-commerce is going to have a much different framework than telehealth, which direct to consumer or retail like Jose Cuervo. It's all going to be very different. And I think AI application space is so far out there from the couple of clients I just mentioned, right? It's just a very, very different approach, especially because of how quickly somebody can put an application up these days, right? Like if we want to talk about what your go-to-market plan should be, how you define your audience, what your marketing levers and channels should be, I just think it's totally a different strategy, different mentality, just different approach than you typically would have with, like I said, an e-commerce or retail or telehealth style business, because it's just such a fast moving and ever evolving basically world when it comes to the application space and AI stuff these days.
Okay, so if, let's say I'm building an app, I play men's league hockey. So I'm building an app and I want it to do, let's see, what would it be? I don't know, like put everybody's name in the app, and then this rink has ice time at 9 p.m. on a Monday. First 24 people look at this. What would be my go-to-market strategy on that? How do I even know somebody would even want it?
Yeah. And I think that's the thing too. It's for anybody who's developing an app these days, right? We all know, we've spoken about this a bunch of times. You can build an app in a couple of hours, right? Or a couple of days. During the process of building your app or ideating on what your application should be, it's define your audience and define it clearly. And as you're doing that, whether it be through Claude or OpenAI, ChatGPT, whatever it is, it thoroughly define your audience and foolproof it, right? Because make sure you're actually serving somebody based on what it is that they're looking for. And this is a very basic problem solution type approach, right? Make sure that there's a problem that you're going to solve for somebody, or that there's a need that you're going to provide something for somebody as you're starting to ideate the app. Because if you get 2 or 3 days into building your app, or even a few hours into building your app, and then later on you find that you don't even have a customer for it, you've now just wasted hours or days into building something that's not even going to have a customer base for you to even start building any revenue from it, right? So I think that's the biggest piece that most people miss, is you could have this great idea and on paper, so to speak, it sounds awesome. But again, if there's nobody looking for it, you're not going to gain any visibility or traction with it. And again, you kind of just wasted a bunch of time, mental energy, and really just time building it out to not get anything back in return for it. So a lot of it to me comes in making sure there's an actual customer base for it, defining who that is, what's the pain point that you're solving for them, and then where they are, right? And you can do that through a bunch of different ways, right? Whether that's subreddit, different threads, Google Trends is another good one, just general searches online, and leverage the power of AI, the places that you're going to build your app. Again, it's like, use that tool, use the power of it to go back and forth in discussions and say, is there an audience for this? Based on what I'm building, what do search queries look like on a global scale for it, right? What do the audiences look like? What kind of questions are they asking? How can I solve, again, any pain points or issues based on the application I want to build? What am I not thinking of that I can build in the application to make it more robust and that much better? So those are the few things that I would look at first, again, as you're kind of building your app out, before you even roll it out to the public and have a more robust go-to-market plan.
I mean, honestly, it's like, to me, it sounds like simple market research, right? We talked about this with our last guest we had on Tuesday, Meg. She's fantastic. But we were talking about, like, how do you come up with an idea? And then with so many different people working and building apps right now, how do you know that your idea isn't already in place, and those kind of things? But if we were going to use like Charlie's hockey app as a idea, like, you're in an ideal location, Charlie, because your market research is done on the ice. Your market research is done in the locker room, right? You already know as a hockey player what you want and what you think is missing. But then all you do is chat to your hockey guys and be like, hey, I have this idea. What would you want to see? What do you think is missing? So before you even build, you've done like your market research, right?
Yeah,
correct.
So that would be like stage one, I would imagine, because like you said, you could spend all this time building an app to find out there's 7 other apps that are out there like it, and therefore now you've got to prove that you're better than the other 7. Or you build the app and nobody cares about it and nobody wants it. Either one, you're giving yourself problems.
Correct. I think to take it a step further than that has to, let's use this hockey app as the example here. Yeah, Charlie going in the locker room or speaking to people in the facility is just one example, but a very small sample size, right? So yeah, you may be solving a pain point for that one facility, but your aspirations for that app have to be larger than just solving the ice time for one facility. You want to solve it for every hockey facility in the country or around the world. So taking it that step further is, okay, I identify a pain point here within my facility. Now let me do some advanced research and reach out to facilities that are in my state, in my country, in my region, whatever that may be, and see if there's a commonality across that. Or again, look at Reddit threads, look if other people are having the same issue with, hey, we always have problems with ice time, right? Where certain teams are just overlapping, or people, have those conversations, even if it takes a little bit of time to do that, even if it takes emails or sometimes in-person meetings, or sometimes phone calls. If the application means that much and you actually see it working in the long term, it's worth it to do the initial research, because if you have a larger pool of people who are having the same issue, then you know that you have something there. Too small of a pool isn't going to validate the app enough to roll it out.
Yeah.
I think domain expertise is huge. I think that's big. There's a couple of these apps, just as an example, like in the app, you could have like who's on beer duty for Monday night, and then it rotates through the roster. That person doesn't bring beer, they get, kicked in the nuts, something like that, right? Like you like get punished for not bringing beer, right? Like that is a real thing. So that's a nuance that you would know or not know if you had never been in that situation before.
Yeah.
And that person will never forget beer ever again. They are publicly humiliated. So I think a lot of it is domain expertise, and I would think that's probably the biggest component of like product market, of research, I guess, and that lends itself to product market fit then.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, because again, now you're identifying the customer base and identifying the niche that you want to live within, and now matching up your product based on that, right? So now you're able to, again, it's more about identifying the demographic, the customer base, and the audience, and building your product around that instead of building a product based on your assumptions of what the customer base or target audience is supposed to be, right? So you're almost you're backing up into it in a way instead of building it and then trying to force somebody to use it based on what you think is what they're looking for.
Now, would you say, if I wanted to start, would you say that I should, using that example, I should use the app, I should create the app for adult weekend warriors of like rec sports, or niche it down to adult men's league players?
That would probably be dependent on, again, that would be very dependent on the market research and where you see the best use case for it.
Or would you narrow it down to the niche, the hockey example, and then spread it from there?
Spread it as into other sports, you're saying, or keep it in
from hockey to like softball.
That would probably be the direction I would go in, right? So take it from hockey. I wouldn't niche it down any further than hockey, right? I think like you already have something there. Niching it any further down, I think you get way too specific, right? If you go after a weekend warrior versus the guys who are playing the intramural hockey, right, which I know you do, Charlie, I think that's where you get a little too dialed in. And listen, there's definitely a thing of being way too segmented in your approach as well, right? Where you're trying to speak to this very, very specific audience and it's just way too small, right? Or it's just way too segmented to a point where you're not going to get the results that you're looking for. So I would just focus on solely hockey and then spread it out to different sports or different athletic programs.
Okay, so we talked about the market strategy. So you're the marketing guru, not me. But in my brain, I'm thinking, okay, we've done that. So now I need to really hone in and identify like who I want my customers to be or who I think my customers are going to be. And then would the next step be like, okay, these are who I think my customers are. Now I have to figure out the best way to market my app to them. Is that kind of like the next natural step in that process?
Exactly it. And again, it's, there's some assumption in there, but based on the research that's been done, again, everything prior to this point, you have a much better idea. This is where I say where they are, where they eat, what they do, what they like. And this gives you a really solid idea of now where to market your app, right? Because if you have, again, this hockey thing, okay, they probably all generally fit a specific maybe age range. Maybe they're more male than female. Maybe they all like the same types of things, right? So now you can really start being very targeted in how you advertise your app, right? Not just on the app store, but if you want to target it on certain websites that they may visit, right? It's like, and this is just a very simplistic example to put it out there, right? But if you want to start using display advertising to push your app out there, why not do it on sports websites, right? But why not even dial it in further and do it on sports websites that are relative to hockey, right? That would be a really great place to push your application out there with, a really nice call to action or value proposition. Another way to do it as well would be, again, to look at a higher level, maybe some of these facilities that run these hockey programs, the directors of these facilities are interested in promoting it within the facility itself and doing some outreach to them to just help push it out to the intramural programs, right? Those are the things that I would start looking at in terms of actually promoting the application itself and starting to get it out to the customer base based on the research that you've done.
One thing that we hear from founders and these interviews is that when they launch these apps, they spend so much time on it and then it's just crickets. It goes to Reddit, they get banned on Reddit, they get their account suspended, they're on Twitter, they're on Product Hunt, Gumroad, Substack, like whoever else. And it's like they rely on these third-party platforms and they don't have a sustainable way of customer acquisition to their website. So first, like 60 days, what would you say is a good strategy to get customers to the website?
Yeah, I think it's maximizing visibility, quite honestly. And listen, with marketing,
ads, like Google ads.
Exactly. Yep, exactly. It's a pay to play game, right? When it comes to marketing for your ads, and listen, if you've identified, again, a customer base for your application, there's a need for it and people are looking for it, that's the lowest funnel user you're ever going to get, right? If somebody's typing in something for, again, if it's I want a scheduler or something for ice time at my hockey rink, right?
Yeah.
somebody's looking for that on Google, it's literally the lowest funnel person you'll ever get, because the intent is to find something very specific to that. So my suggestion to anybody would be to, after you've done your market research, if there's a need for it, Google Trends shows something that supports it. Again, Reddit threads, keyword research, organic research, all that stuff. Just start running paid ads for it, and don't just do search ads. Also do some display ads to just build up that visibility, that branding, and that awareness. And that will also help drive a little bit more traffic to the site. The more traffic you get, you'll really help build up some of that authority in the space for what you're providing for.
One of the things that, like, with AI, because obviously I'm so new to it, is I just don't know how people don't get lost in the source. And I guess that's where the marketing comes in, right? But I was wondering, like, with your experience, do you think it would be worth maybe doing something to get people interested before the product's even done? I know you can create an app like in 5 minutes these days, but not a worthwhile one that's really going to be the final product, right? So in my brain, I'm thinking, could you do something like crowdsourcing or beta testing that maybe you put out on LinkedIn or you put out on Reddit, or something where you get people involved in the actual process before it's completed? Is that something that would even work in this environment, given how fast paced it is? Or is that like not even?
You know what? It's a great idea in theory. The only time I see it work really well is if you already have a very large following, right? So if you're going to put it out on LinkedIn and you've already had another product that's been very successful, right? Or you have a very large following, you'll get a ton of input, right? But you have to really build a ton of excitement around your application in order for that to happen. And listen, I'm not saying it can't, especially with a new one. It can build momentum and it can snowball. And again, everybody loves that community feel around helping build and shape something before it even rolls out. So there is something there. But typically, if there's no large following to begin with, it's really hard to cultivate that and get that community built in before something's even rolled out, because everybody wants to see it in real time, use it, see how it functions. And I just think it's really difficult to do that again without having a larger following or having a product that preceded it that people already knew about.
Also, I guess in my mind, I would be worried that I put this out there like, hey, I'm building this hockey app and it's going to do this, this, and this. Meanwhile, Bob, our old friend Bob, is sitting there going, oh, that's a great idea. And now him and his best friend Bill sitting there creating the app that I just said I was going to create with my audience.
Who has
because
the audience?
It's so fast moving. But do you know what I mean? Like, because I just feel like
I think
if
now
I put an idea out there, someone's going to steal it.
I think that the moat now, and we've heard this from multiple founders, is distribution. So it's like now that, again, that the barrier to entry is so low, and the go-to-market is having somewhat of an audience, I don't know about established, but somewhat of an audience, and then basically sell it before you make it, and just sprint with it and just run with it.
Yeah,
and then,
I guess that makes sense.
Audience is in distribution is the new moat, and we've heard that from like very established founders too in the space. So okay, so we've done the research, done the go-to-market. You're generating some sales. I guess that validates the product market fit, right?
Yeah, I would also say too, with the go-to-market, as you're rolling this out, again, you're kind of selecting your 2 to 3 core channels. You know your audience. You're starting to drive traffic. You get downloads. You know, whatever it is, the use case for your application is the one thing that people always really forget to do. Again, it's the analytics perspective to make sure that everything you're driving over is being accounted for, right? You're getting attribution. So if you are setting up, a paid campaign on Google, or you're running emails, or you're running social media, it's so pertinent to have all of your analytics set up, because you want to know what's working and why it's working versus what's not working, so that you're maximizing your spend, right? Because I think the big mistake, and Charlie, you and I have had this conversation about, especially in this space, right? Like, everybody can build an app, but when it comes to marketing it, people can throw up Google ads, but they have no idea whether it's working or not, right? So putting in the proper analytics setup for proper attribution is so key to this, because again, you can run Google ads and you can get 50 downloads on your app from Google ads, but if you spent $10,000, is that really worth the 50 downloads? Probably not, right? So setting it up in a way to properly attribute how everything's working from a marketing perspective is also really important, because then you can understand the channels that drive the most growth, give you the most return on investment for what you're putting into it. And that's where you can really start being smarter about how you promote the app, because maybe it's not Google ads. Maybe social media is just a really big driver of visibility and engagement and downloads for you. And that's where you want to put most of your budget moving forward, right? As you grow and you scale up. So alongside your go-to-market, I'd say this is almost done simultaneously. It's like, make sure you set up your analytics, right? It doesn't have to be something super robust, but you want to set it up because you want to make sure that you're measuring the effectiveness of all of your marketing campaigns, as well as just get your general metrics, right? Because what this will also do is you can, again, do research all day on your customers, on your users, and educate yourself as much as you can, but you don't know exactly who they are until you see it directly in analytics, right? And analytics will give you a really good idea of the personas or the types of users who come in and download your app, right? Age range, where they are, all of those important things that'll help you kind of build things around marketing efforts moving forward.
Okay. So let's call it 90 days. App goes live. All right, you made a stir on Twitter, Reddit, you scraped Reddit, you got a couple subreddits, all that.
What's Twitter?
X. What channels would you say are the most important in those first 90 days?
Within the first 90 days?
Yeah.
I think that just goes back to what I said. I don't think there's any
just
channel
based on analytics.
Yeah, I don't think there's any channel that's more important than the other. I think it's really dependent on where your users are. And I think that's going to be very apparent in the analytics, right? Because again, you can do that research and you might say, yeah, I think most of my users are on X based on the demographic and the research I've done. But you may come to find out that nope, a lot of them are on TikTok or a lot of them are on LinkedIn. And that's where I should actually be in terms of a lot of the, press, the marketing, everything that I'm putting out there to get more people engaged with the application itself.
Which is a nice segue into next week, because we talked a lot about analytics. And if there's one thing that I know that you're really good at, it's analytics.
Yeah, I love that stuff.
I do not. Data is not my friend. So yeah, I think it's a great segue because we did talk about it off air before we came on about the analytics and just how important they are. And a lot of people who are listening or watching this podcast are going to be more of people who are wanting to build and develop their apps, and that's their expertise versus, like we're talking about, the marketing and distribution, and alongside that the analytics, which I think are vital. So next week we'll take a dive you, not me, we'll take a dive into analytics and the tools that you think are the most important for people to be using to figure out if their ad spends are worth it or not.
Love it. I love
Let's
that.
do it.
That's what we'll do. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. We'll be back on Tuesday with another episode. And then Thursday, the three of us will be back to talk about analytics. Yay.
Yay.
Yay.